Lafayette County, this individual Lafayette County case, although we were private and Pittsburgh. I am the senior judge of 5 counties. Lafayette, Washington, Calhoun. So this court will hear the cases on any one of those counties and any one of the counties. And that's one of the reasons Calhoun, that's why this case is being heard in Calhoun, which is one of the times between Pittsburgh. This is the case 2026 CB 017, the Fayette County County Court, Trinidad Chambliss versus National Collegiate Athletic Association. The tuition and others are working in Trinidad, group is working at this time. Thank you, Mr. Williams, for the show. So if you would, with each of you on your stand and introduce yourself as the court reporter, to get down the names of each of the attorneys and each side. Start with the
Yes, Your Honor. My name is William Liston. Firm is Liston and Dees. I represent this gentleman to my right, Trinidad Chambliss.
Ray Byers from Oxford, and a Tucker also representing Tucker. Your Honor, Lawrence Dees, also with Liston and Dees. Tom Barnes, Arkansas, also representing. Yes, Your Honor. Doug Minor, from Hollywood, my firm, on behalf of the
Taylor Rescue from Tennessee on behalf of
David Dyton from Tennessee on behalf of
they're both in Courthouse recently to be allowed to stand on the justice of the court. All right, so we're going to see.
Yes, Your Honor.
Everybody's going to testify in this case. Please stand, raise your right hand at each one. You plan to testify or may testify. Stand and raise your right hand at each one.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this cause is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Gentlemen, is there any need to question for this?
No, Your Honor.
All of the witnesses will be allowed to testify. You have the first one.
Yes, Your Honor. We call Dr. Ford Dye. Your Honor, may I proceed? Dr. Dye, where do you live and practice medicine? Are you medically licensed in the state of Mississippi? When did you obtain your medical license? Where did you obtain your undergraduate degree? Were you in any honorary societies at University of North Carolina? What is it? Where did you attend medical school? Did you do an internship? And where did you do that? Okay. What about a residency? Did you do that? Okay, in what field? Okay. How many years? You said 4 years you were a resident? I think you just answered this. I was going to ask you what an otolaryngologist is. Thank you. Are you a board certified otolaryngologist? Can you explain to the court what was required for you to attain your board certification?
First of all, you have to complete a federal university program. two-step process to certify. First, you have to take it to I got where it was, and 2 days, 4 boys down, different schools. First one, actually did 4 boys, but you have to pass that people like that.
And you achieved all that. All right. Do you practice in any cities in Mississippi other than Oxford, Mississippi? How long have you practiced otolaryngology in North Mississippi? Your Honor, at this time, I would offer Dr. Dye to the respondents for any board hour questions they may have. It's my intent, of course, to tender him to the court as an expert witness in the field of otolaryngology.
Yes, Your Honor, we will accept it.
Dr. Dye, I'm going to be asking you some questions today. Some of them are going to be factual. Some of them are going to call for you to express an opinion. All right? I want to strike an agreement with you right now. If I ask you for an opinion question, will you agree to express that opinion based upon a reasonable medical probability? Thank you.
By the way, did everybody hear me out there? Can you hear me? I'll try to speak up. Is this on? Can you hear that? Okay.
Then, Your Honor, kindly, I'm going to ask the witness to speak up. He's not talking loud. All right. Dr. Dye, did you, at my request, review some documents?
I did.
Okay. Can you tell us what documents you reviewed? Okay. Did you review any correspondence written by a doctor in Michigan? Okay. And I'm referring to Dr. Anthony Howard. Okay. You have seen that letter, right? Who do you understand Dr. Howard to be with regard to Trinidad? Okay, thank you. When you reviewed Dr. Howard's letter, did you give it any weight in forming your opinions?
Absolutely.
You read both Dr. Howard's letter and Trinidad's medical record, right? About 90 pages of medical record. Okay. In your opinion, was there any conflict between those two documents? In the medical records, did you see an office visit that Trinidad had with Dr. Howard in December of 2022? Okay. You've seen, do you even know the number of patients you've seen in your medical practice? Okay. Has a patient ever come into an office visit with you and said that they're doing well? Okay. And when a patient says that, does that indicate to you that patient's cured? Most people that have sleep apnea don't realize how bad it feels when you perform correctly with surgery or sleep apnea and other procedures. You need to realize how bad it is and how regular tired after this correct. I mean, that's the thing that. Okay. So could it be that a patient with that condition, sleep apnea, knows that they're tired or fatigued, but they don't understand why?
That's the baseline stat.
Okay. Um, in the context of Trinidad's medical history, and by that I don't just mean on December 2022, I mean the whole history. Okay. What significance do you give to a statement in December 2022 that Trinidad do well?
He was doing better than that. I actually talked to him about that. He was doing better at that time. Really, that vision between the optimist and team of the man who helped on before the city complex and everything. At that point, he was doing better, so he decided to become better. To improve, but ultimately not because the complex is.
Okay, thank you. I want to ask you about what Dr. Howard recorded in medical records that you reviewed. Okay. And on August 1, 2022, Trinidad went in to see Dr. Howard for the first time. You familiar with that? Okay. In that record of August 1, 2022, would you agree there's no reference to the magic words incapacity to play college football? In quote. Okay. Do you find that odd or unusual in any way?
Not at all. Dr. Howard office came through. The reporting provided at the time of care diagnosis. There's no point to that document.
Okay. In your medical records that you maintain and create, do you address esoteric questions like incapacity to participate in a particular activity unless the patient or someone else requests you to do that? Have you seen, other than today, have you seen Trinidad, Champ? Okay. And what was the purpose of you seeing him? Okay. Did you perform a physical examination of him? Why not? Okay. Can you tell us what history, medical history, Trinidad gave you when you saw him earlier this week?
Especially in 2020, he had to take the monitor to start with tonsillitis. So the working, that's pretty common. Tonsillitis is actually monitor the bowel. Living in optimal tissues is takes care of bronchitis fluids. When they have a monitor goes infection on top of the bacterial tonsillitis, it's also leads to increased growth. That would start off. And then you had COVID, bigger lead of 2020, which was diagnosed at that time. 3 months later, he goes to the emergency room, chest pain, palpitation, short of breath, had to work up. First, we saw a cardiologist, that was COVID. 3 months after his infection, he had a 20-year-old person pump. From that point forward, he had trouble breathing, trouble sleeping, sleep apnea, something, daytime silence, sleep, and then on, and we found out Howard in August of 2022. And Howard, I think at that point, I'm just reading the line, wanted to get a common management. That was an honest, I take care of athletes as well. You never want to take common management at the beginning of the industry. The season pleasant, you get to school. When I take off the battery, you try to do the Christmas break or summer break and the spring break. You're going to miss 2 weeks of school. And this year, the incredible school, missing 4 weeks of school is going to be incorporated in the afternoon project. I have some college students just those students that we have a hard time getting through the semester. And some of the things we do. That went on for a while, after Howard gave us his long sitting there, the thing that helped us was to come up, and that's where that is, then we would do better. Talking to that, he was not well, that, at that point, we similar option was, are we going to talk about that now? Or are we going to try to do that tomorrow? And as a physician, I try to avoid talking.
You mean avoid what? Avoid the surgery on them?
Avoid the surgery if you can. Whenever you have a chance to do that management and you take and avoid the surgery, that's the better thing to do. I saw 4 patients this week, and I think that the patient was off-evaluated, and I said, "You're not educated for what to do." You always wait a year for the benefits, and I think he was waiting his year for the benefits that time has it like an hour. In my opinion. And besides that, we continue to try to move forward. He definitely kept going, and finally after something more, he just kept it straight up to the Tom had a top batting job, which was very difficult for surgery, something to assess with it. To keep that time, you can find.
Let's talk about tonsils and adenoids. First of all, where are the tonsils anatomically located?
The palatine tonsils are in your mouth. Adenoid tonsils, part of the nose is straight back, and back of the nose is probably the native.
So one's located through inside the mouth, right?
Right, that's palatine tonsils, what you see in the mouth, adenoid behind the nose.
Okay. What happens when those tissues swell?
Also breathe and swallowing.
Can it have adverse effects on the patient both in the daytime and at nighttime?
Breathe apnea is a very problematic illness. I mean, it's almost like for anybody that's sitting in the courtroom in the chest, if you don't sleep all night, you're probably not starting that chest. You do that every night over and over again. So we studied on first graders that had a talk about first and second back that had a talk about first and second grade. That the things included in the ninth and seventh grade. If you have to that, we call it based on trauma, lines of energy, difficult and it's a chronic problem. And ultimately, it really is heart palpitation, heart disease.
If an individual who's a collegiate athlete is trying to play a sport or even train and condition and develop in order to be able to play a sport, what kind of effect can the conditions you just described have on that person?
He's not going to be able to he's not going to be able to do full training.
In other words, he's not gonna be able to get in shape. So he's ready to go full steam.
Not at that point. He's not gonna be able to do the training necessary to play that way.
Okay. Can a tonsillar infection go away, but the patient be left with an obstruction to his airway that would cause him to have sleep apnea every night?
Yeah, the only thing with bacterial tonsillitis and the infection is that it's going around with mono is expected or not. Typically, you can have a swelling for a while with mono. That very infection doesn't have much long.
Okay. Would a patient that has sleep apnea fully appreciate the degree to which he has it?
Not until I get the problem corrected, then I'll have that going.
Okay. If an observer was watching that patient sleep during a period of sleep apnea, how could the observer detect he's suffering from sleep apnea?
Right. Also stop breathing, also struggle breathing, that's the fraction.
Even though Trinidad told his doctor in December of 2022 he was doing better, did his adenotonsillar hypertrophy go away? And when I use that term, I think I know what it means. You really know what it means. What is adenotonsillar hypertrophy?
Keeping confident in line and having it in line, just the normal things of air and breathing.
So I don't understand. Dr. Howard said there's something plus 3.
Correct.
So you could look the same thing when you see that routine.
They will. I think they do the first numbers, like, it's the same as they were not. They were still wrong, but.
That's a good question.
He was better, he wasn't winning.
So I've got a question based on what the judge just asked you. In August of 2022, Dr. Howard graded Trinidad's tonsils at 3+.
Correct.
And then in December 2002, he graded them at 2 to 3+. Okay. How much of the airway through the mouth can 3+ tonsils obstruct?
Usually 60, 75%.
If a patient has chronic tonsillitis and chronic adenoiditis, is the patient going to sense pain?
You have to keep
Okay.
You have tonsillitis, you have to infect it. You the antibiotics still will do that better, but you have to keep you have to pain, you keep better, you pain.
Okay. You reviewed Trinidad's records, right? Did he have flare-ups?
I don't have any records, but after my conversation with him, Dr. Howard's office is an hour away from Trinidad too. As an ENT doctor, I'm stressed, I'm doing this time of year. Like the patient I saw, I saw the patient had not quite enough infections, and never did enough. I'm gonna see him back in 4 months. If they have an acute flare-up, Dr. Howard wouldn't have that record. Something like primary care or urgent care or what. He had a few episodes. The trainer's record also did, even the training office got some lessons at the school as well.
Okay.
The trainer's letter was said on there that I don't have any records from the trainer, but the trainer's letter said he was constipated and training medication.
Right. What type of medication, like over-the-counter med?
I don't know if it wasn't specified.
Okay. Well, let me ask you about a particular record. Have you seen a record of an office visit Trinidad had with his ENT clinic back at home that's dated in November 2024? Do you recall what history Trinidad gave in that record about flare-ups? Do you remember whether or not that history, as recorded in that record, says flare-ups over the last year?
I don't know exact details, but I mean, he didn't have any flare.
Okay. Dr. Dye, some people might be inclined to dismiss tonsillitis and adenoiditis as just like childhood disease. Would that be smart of them to do that?
It's not, that's all that.
Okay. Have you seen instances where those diseases affect adults worse than they affect children?
Children are a little more resilient. How it has gotten to find tonsillitis. I think it's a good example of school age children, but when you get older, you have less body weight and not quite as in shape as something. It's just part of it. It can be more problematic. Still an adult, it's very variable how we affect it. Sometimes they're mild cases, you go off that bad, other people have more severe cases.
Okay.
Like anyone, if I use this example, influenza, people die from flu. You look at the die from flu, people flu all the time when it's fine, but there are some people that do die. A lot of that has to do with their immune system, comorbidities. Once again, I think when you're not getting good sleep, your immune system can be activated.
Okay. Do you believe, based on reasonable medical probability, that Trinidad had any kind of immunity issues or problems going on?
Well, I think the mono and the COVID didn't help matters. I mean, I think it was so fascinating that he was driving constantly higher. I don't think the immune system was what he was doing.
Let's talk about the surgery. for tonsils and adenoids. Am I pronouncing that word correctly? Thank you. All right. What do you counsel your patients about that surgery with respect to pain and recovery?
I tell my patients, you know, I do a lot of office manuals. The first thing I do, I make sure right here, if the American Academy of Surgery, I try to do my certain number of sessions each year. I'm on 40 days. First thing I do is make sure that it's indicated. I tell a lot of parents not to do this, and adults. And I tell my adults, I saw one there saying, I'm medicine. I told them, I said, look, you don't have to talk about it now. It's the worst thing I do. I don't want to hurt my business, but
What do you mean the worst thing you do?
painful. It takes 2 weeks to recover from hospitalization. If I'm missing school, missing work, there's the risk of bleeding. The most serious risk of bleeding is skin and throat. Of course, it doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen.
Yeah.
And
That's the end of Dean Street.
or you found it. But yeah, it's tough. It's very tough. I tell my kids, the risk of bleeding is going to get back because you stop bleeding. The pain lasts for 2 weeks. Now, I use this example all the time. I tell my patients when you have knee surgery, that hurts, and you cut the knee up on the field, take the pain pill, you say, you know, once you do, you forget about it. You can't forget about the pain. Every time you swallow, it can go. It's a tough. Anybody has obviously, if you dehydrated, it's common in the body. The confidence is known to be harder, and the older you get, the harder it is.
Have you known patients in your practice who will deal with a problem like tonsillitis and adenoiditis for years before they finally decide to have a surgery? And why do they do that?
Well, they're trying to avoid surgery. The surgery, most people they know when it has tonsillitis or adenoiditis. Tonsillitis is the main problem. Won't try to avoid it. Like this thing is all wrong.
Okay. Is it a risk-free surgery?
It's not at all.
What are some of the risks of the tonsillectomy and adenoidectomy?
Well, then the main risk is bleeding. That's most serious complication. And bleeding rarely leads to death in area. You know, that's fortunately, you know, you don't have death in tonsillitis very often. It's hard.
Are you personally aware of instances where patients have died after having those surgeries? So let me ask you a hypothetical question. If in August of 2022, when Trinidad first saw Dr. Howard, which is right before the 2022 Fair State football season, if Trinidad had undergone a tonsillectomy and adenoidectomy at that time, what effect was it going to have on him with respect to going to school and football?
I thought mentioned earlier, I would not do tonsillectomy. You know, that's from second grader or high school or freshman college. It wasn't something I don't feel anything. Let's have it to do it. Aspect of some kind of where I'm at now. You're going to miss 2 or 3 weeks, and you're not going to be able to pick a class. You're going to miss school, get behind, you go to football on top of that. I would never do that at the beginning of football. So
Okay. You've read Dr. Howard's letter, as you said.
Yeah.
It was written in October 2025.
Correct.
He's the same doctor that treated Trinidad for this problem, right?
Right.
Okay. There's some statements in there, and I don't think I need to quote them because the court has the letters and evidence. But I want to make reference to some of the statements. Dr. Howard commented in his letter about how Trinidad's medical condition back in 2022 would impair his ability to train, condition, practice, prepare for games. You remember that? Okay. As a board certified otolaryngologist, do you agree with what he said? Is there anything in that statement that you find inconsistent with Trinidad's medical records from that time? Dr. Howard also remarked about recurrent infections and disrupted sleep as a result of the conditions which Trinidad had. as an expert, do you have any reason to disagree with that statement? I think then finally, Dr. Howard, in the conclusion of his letter, stated, and I'm quoting here, Trinidad's chronic tonsillitis represents a medically valid basis for hardship consideration, as his condition rendered him incapacitated and unable to participate in the 2022 season, end quote. Did you see that in the letter?
Yeah.
As a board certified otolaryngologist, do you disagree with that statement?
I don't.
And is that statement consistent with the history that's actually in Trinidad's medical record?
It is. I think the code of the model on top of that.
Okay. Let's talk about the COVID. That disease first hit the United States, I think, in January of 2020. Okay. So it was new to medicine, right?
It was crazy time.
Okay. Has research since been done on the long-term effects of COVID?
It's evolved over time. We're starting to find out secondary long-term effects of COVID. Because back then, it hadn't been around on it. We know the long-term effects for it. Yeah.
Okay. Have you heard the terms long COVID? Okay. So they're actually, we could go on the internet and find medical articles on long COVID, right? But were all those articles available in 2022?
Maybe in the but not in on CDC's website. I looked at probably it was an evolving time. So probably not.
So if Trinidad had long COVID in the fall of 2022, there wasn't a lot of medical information publicly available about that, was there?
Probably not. But it was evolving.
All right, let me ask you a few questions about Trinidad's performance as a quarterback at Fair State in the fall of 2024. You didn't know him at that time, obviously. Did you even know he existed? Okay. Have you become aware that he had success playing quarterback at Fair State in the year 2024? Okay. And that he performed at a pretty high level? Okay. And did he share that history with you when you were talking with him? Okay, thank you. Do you have an opinion why? Stop. Let me start here. Did Trinidad still have chronic tonsillitis, chronic adenoiditis, and adenotonsillar hypertrophy in the fall of 2024? Okay. As a medical expert, how do you explain that a young man with these conditions was finally able to perform at a pretty high level on the football field?
Well, I think going back to 2022 season, we saw how we know. I don't think he had a good prepare for that season, that season playing because of the situation. I think it's one of the things that help the situation, be sure it makes better as far as construction, but it's helped it. And also, I talked to Mom Cheryl. I think being in a college football program with conditioning, nutrition, and they both stood in and his mother focused on him getting good. He was not able to run a college team. He was trying to get rest and food and be very focused. I think over time, and maybe some of the effects of the long COVID and mono was going well at that time as well. So, what the 2022, what the 2024, he's been on medication for 2 years. He's using better nutrition, trying to focus on the best that he can. If it's not perfect, perfect compounding with the he's able to do some little better because of necessary. So I think all that together allows him to improve his situation.
Is sleep apnea the same thing as obstructive sleep apnea?
Well, the first thing that is what you have in compounding the body. Other causes of apnea, some of it's sensitive to different things. He had a perfect sleep apnea because it's obstructing the body.
Right. And just, I may have asked you this, apologize if I have. What sort of effects in the daytime will a patient with obstructive sleep apnea experience, and particularly a young man who's trying to play collegiate football?
they come to be tired in the day, they sometimes to continue. The ability to focus is not as good as it is. Young children, a lot of times young children are just like, confidence and that's disorder. If you get the top of that, they've got to be a little bit to have apnea, get those out. Then well, they're diagnosed with that because they can't focus and
I think I have just one more question for you before I give the NCAA an opportunity to question you. In your opinion, based upon reasonable medical probability, how do you explain a person like Trinidad who goes from being a Division II quarterback to, and yes, I'm going to say it, the best athletic conference in the United States of America, the SEC, and perform at the level that he did in fall of 2025 so well that he was a finalist in the Heisman vote? How do you medically make that make sense?
he never was 100% last year. He was suffering from so basically last January after he started this company on that quit taking the far consumer that he didn't need. He's gone, not tired of himself. He's able to exercise and condition that 100% without innovation. That in this plan to be further forward that it's on to how we go from that level to that level. This year the first year he can help the last year.
Thank you. Your Honor, I would tender Dr. Dye for question.
Good morning, Dr. Dye. My name is Taylor Askew. Thank you so much for being here today. So when did you first meet Mr. Chambliss?
Yesterday,
First time you've seen him in person?
first time that.
The only conversation you've ever had with him was yesterday? Is the basis for your opinion and testimony on what Mr. Chambliss was experiencing from 2022 to 2024 based exclusively on that conversation and what you've reviewed in his medical records? What does it mean to you to be incapacitated?
I'll be unable to completely from
Can you explain that a little bit? You mean can't perform it at all or just not performing at the highest level? Do you know what incapacitated means for purposes of NCAA guidelines? Have you ever been asked about it before? You ever testified on behalf of a student athlete before in an NCAA case? And I've got copies of the medical records to the extent you need to look at them, but would you say you're pretty familiar with what's recorded in those records? There is a notation in the August 1st, 2022 medical record when Mr. Chambliss first presented to Dr. Howard. Do you recall in that medical record a notation that says, we're not going to do surgery, essentially we're not going to do surgery because the football season has already started?
I do.
To you, did that mean that they weren't going to perform surgery then so that Mr. Chambliss could continue participating on the football team at that point? You had testified earlier as well that you would not have recommended surgery on August 1st because Mr. Chambliss might miss some classes. So how long do you believe Mr. Chambliss might have been held out from classes? 2 to 3 weeks. Do you know when Ferris State's classes began in 2022? So if he had well, let me back up. If I represented to you that the first day of classes at Ferris State in 2022 was on August 29th, would you have any reason to refute that? And that's more than 4 weeks after August 1st. And so if Mr. Chambliss had that surgery anytime in the first 7 days after August 1st, he would be back in class before school started. Are you aware that Mr. Chambliss practiced during the 2022 season? Are you aware that there were a number of other quarterbacks also on the Ferris State team at that time? When Mr. Chambliss presented again to Dr. Howard in December of 2022, do you recall reviewing a medical record at that time? And in that record, it says something along the lines of, he's doing great, he just won the national championship, we'll reevaluate him in a year, right?
Well, I actually asked his mother about that visit. And they talked about that point a lot before they get a compliment about it. And I asked him that they would do better, and I said, well, I'm not going to, some doctors, before the documentation there, I don't know that they did discuss that point and get a compliment about it. But he was getting better, and they felt like at that point, you know, the risk of getting out was higher than he got today. But he was not, I think in my practice, I got two bosses. One of them documents everything, one of them kind of sort of documentary. Doesn't mean they're both great documents. But reading between the lines there, I hadn't got to how to, I would have tried to avoid the question. And honestly, at that point, I said, how would I have no idea what record to do? And just like to show that they can teach it. Nobody. But I'm just saying that's the story I got from his mother. They talked about how he's in bed as long as he was more time to do it to continue to improve. Obviously, not to feel ready to stop.
You testified a moment ago that your definition of incapacity means not being able to perform at the highest level.
Well, an adequate level of doing the job. I would say I'm not.
When did Mr. Chambliss become capacitated and no longer incapacitated in your opinion?
No one has said that. Better.
So it's your testimony that during the 2024 Division II college football season, when Mr. Chambliss was a starting quarterback for the national championship team and a finalist for the D2 Heisman, he was incapacitated because he did not have his tonsils on. So just to square that circle, for purposes of your testimony on what the definition of incapacitated means for purposes of this case, Mr. Chambliss was incapacitated in 22, 23, and 24.
I think he was better in 24 than he was in 22. 22 season, I think he was the ball. I think it's I mentioned earlier in my testimony, it's the meditation he was on, training, nutrition, and trying to get that sleep and focus on that. 24 he was better. We're not talking about him, we're talking about him. I think 22, he did use the medication for all of that year, had no training, he was behind his condition. And by 24, he was able to, he was also had 2 years of period. I'm not going to get into this. I'm a doc. I'm not
sure.
I worked out a dictionary that I think that's more. I'm just saying he was not. 22. I don't think he could actually come to the start of the players. He was the LCC.
And other than talking to Mr. Chambliss and his mother, have you talked to anybody at Ferris State about Mr. Chambliss's performance in 2022?
No, but I read that the Howard's letter and that news about. I also seen the senior athletic directors, athletic, and trainers as well. All three said that he had possibility. I read all 4 of those. That's what I have to go by. I haven't really been out there.
You referred to a letter from Ferris State just now. I want to make sure we're talking about the same document. Is this the document from Sarah Higley?
There's another trainer who made Brett, I think it was named that. Yeah, it was Brett was his name. It said that he found that was in the office and training and sick the whole ball.
Didn't he also say that they didn't have any contemporaneous notes of those visits, though?
Yeah, I don't know what vision do. I know I don't miss something that they have a note up in the back. I don't know what they're.
Right, you just had.
I just looked at his letter. That's all I've got.
And that letter was written after the fact, correct? Whatever the date is what the date is. But that letter from Miss Higley, it discusses the 2022 season, and there's a section in it called Basis for Waiver Requests. And if you'd like to look at it, I'm happy to show you a copy of it, or if you remember it, we can just talk about it. Would you like to see the document? Your Honor, may I approach the witness? This one, Your Honor, I have a copy for you. It's not dated, so I don't know exactly.
Your Honor, I believe that's the exhibit for
Excuse me, we have stipulated, right, that all of the exhibits that have been filed with the court may be admitted.
That's correct. If you look at this first page, it says basis for waiver request. You see that section? What's the first sentence say in that section? And I'll read it to you just so, yeah. You would agree with me that the first sentence says the decision to redshirt Trinidad in fall 2022 was based on his developmental needs and our team's competitive circumstances at that time. Period. The second sentence is Trinidad also had a few medical problems that arose during the fall 2022 season that could have played a role in the decision to redshirt him. What does the word could mean?
Yeah, I mean, it could happen. I mean, I think it's, I think my record is popular, and I think it's good. And I'm a doctor, she's not.
Yeah.
I'm the same. I do look at stuff all the time.
And you, fair enough, but you were not there in 2022 to see him participate.
I read the doctor that worked there, what he said.
And based on your understanding of incapacity, Mr. Chambliss could still participate in football. He just couldn't do it at the highest level or to his maximum level.
Unless he had flares in the top line, if he had a deep top line infection, I was there with him. If he had a deep top line infection, then he can't practice. He usually lives. Say you have 400 top line if you follow in the football field, you can miss 3 or 4 days. You have 2 players.
If that's the case, then would you have recommended surgery at some point between 2022 and December of 2024?
I would talk about it. I would give an option that. But again, I think talking to that brother, I think the risk of the surgery concerning him. It's obviously a big concern about it. I think also he that was a concern.
So he just
I wasn't in there. I didn't look at him, but I would say this. I would know I could avoid surgery if I could. Just because of this, if we want to get better on, or if it didn't work, I would consider.
Have you
had that discussion with that? I don't think I would document that and note that was a discussion that was had.
have you seen anything in any of the documents that you've been provided that Trinidad was ever instructed not to practice or participate in football? Have you seen anything that said he was held out of any part of the Ferris State football program? So correct. And there's nothing in these letters that said Mr. Chambliss ever missed anything related to football because of his tonsils.
No, but once again, college football player that had tonsillitis and actually happened in the context would you know yes in fact. I don't have a record of it, but I'm with the total history that I believe it.
How much practice do you think he would have missed?
I said every player can have probably 3 or 4 days.
How long? 3 or 4 days. If he had a so if he had his tonsils out, how much practice do you think he would have missed? You said
whatever games he made, I think in some other aspects of the school, you know, it's similar situation. I would not take a top down for the start of the season, or been hard to cover that.
You said you had some experience at the University of Mississippi Medical Center?
Yeah.
What was that experience?
I went to med school there for 4 years, and then years ago, first in NCAA, and then 4 years ago.
It's a good school, correct? If they post things on their website about treatment, prognosis, and things like that, would you agree that it's generally pretty accurate?
Depends on what it was. I don't think it was related.
So if there is a web page, if I go to University of Mississippi Medical Center's website that talks about home care after a tonsillectomy, and it says that children, there are no strict rules for activity after surgery other than to avoid contact sports or heavy exertion for about 2 weeks. Would you have any reason to disagree with that?
I would agree with that. I would think one of the side effects of tonsillectomy is building dehydration. You don't get out there playing in some of these
So that would be, so this, you're more cautious with children than you would be with adults with respect.
Adults, I mean, I do talk to adults. I don't think heavy exertion is not such a good idea.
For up to 2 weeks, or do you think that information is wrong? So if Mr. Chambliss had gotten a tonsillectomy on August 1st, or anywhere between August 1st and August 7th of 2022, he's out for 2 weeks, correct, from contact sports.
Correct.
He's out for maybe 2 weeks from classes, correct? But we know that classes didn't start till August 29th, 2022, correct? And do you know when the first game Ferris State played was in 2022? If it was September 1st of that year, would you have any reason to dispute that?
The problem that we talked about, you're going to miss 2 or 3 weeks of practice. You're also going to have, people spend that day we had a talk about, usually lose about, I tell my patients, contact is guaranteed die. You don't lose somebody things. And for a college athlete, and all of them, you should have the season start and be out of practice for 2 weeks. I don't think he's going to play in the first game, except in the first game. I don't think that's a possibility. I think if you still had a talk, I think now even after last year, in August, I'm not sure he'd be able to start the first game next week. He may be trying to start on it, but I think it'd be too hard to start.
Do you know when Mr. Chambliss first resumed heavy exerting activity after his tonsillectomy in 2024? Do you recall looking at a note that was a medical note about 11 days later that said he was doing well? Is there anything in that note that told him not to participate in any kind of exercise or competition or anything like that?
That was a new position specifically in follow-up. Once again, these notes are electronic medical records. Sometimes you have to know the record. That's how we can line. Someone doesn't know.
I'm with you there.
Because even more you saw one of my notes, I would have been very clear. And but once again, too, I don't think anybody at that time had any idea of the future university. Look at
100%.
No outweigh the position.
Right, 100%. And this is not casting aspersions on anybody, but when you'd agree with me though that when you've got a record that is vacant.
I've done a lot of contracts with I would not. I would if you come here to Mississippi and had an out, and I've been in January, I would have told them that it's 2 weeks. Don't be able to hear what you're saying.
2 weeks. How long is the football season? And you know how long a football season is? You know how long a football season is? Longer than 2 weeks. Significantly, right? And back to the question I started a moment ago, though, you'd agree with me, though, that while we're not saying anybody's done anything wrong with respect to documentation, when there isn't specific information included in that documentation, it just leaves us to speculate as to what might be needed to fill those gaps, right?
It does. I work in Division I school.
Sure.
And I don't think the Division II schools have a resource probably Division I school. They probably don't have a resource for Division II schools about all that. They probably don't have a dedicated person whose job is to make sure all that documentation is done.
And that leaves you a doctor at a Division I school left just to speculate as to what could have happened here because there just wasn't, there's not enough information for you to know for sure what the situation was.
I can't know for sure, but I'm looking at the whole picture, I'm making some decisions.
Yeah, based on your experience, based on your experience. And
I'm not affected by that, and I'm gonna read the record, maybe not how we know,
I don't believe I have anything else, Your Honor. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. I will not. May I approach the witness? Dr. Dobb. I got to put it at medical record too. Pull up this page. Okay. You were saying something about electronic medical records don't always read very well.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I'll get electronic medical records to the first division, I can tell you.
Okay.
Some of them are better than others, and some of them are also, if it's more, I mean, look, this is the first thing is the impression. And I'm pretty good at documenting what I do. If you read one of my notes, you tell what was that, if you read one of my notes, you would know what I was thinking. And I think that you think that I said, Trinidad is better, you know, it's not completely. We've got our occupation for the team management, they're getting off the management down.
Okay. While you said the words medical management, I want to ask you this question before I get you into this record. If Dr. Howard had said it on August 1, 2022, you need an operation, let's do it tomorrow. Okay. Is that a complete abandonment of a conservative medical approach?
Yeah, I mean, I would, this is your trying to go a certain way. If I have a common student in my office, that's my office problem. Especially if they're, you know, I always try to give them some message so they talk about it. Yeah, if they have an asset or something that comes up, and sometimes you can't have the possibility to do it, but I mean, most of these doctors would not perform a comprehensive everything overall, what it is. Elementary school student, high school student, college student, really not a college student.
Do you know whether or not the NCAA rule book, which is about 400 pages long, hang on, listen to the question. Do you know whether or not this 400-page long rule book defines the term? Yes, sir.
I have not read that.
All right. Do you know whether or not that book defines the term incapacity?
I do not, I have no idea.
Would you be shocked to learn that it does not?
Probably not.
That's a word just common English usage, right? Okay. Let me now ask you about this medical record. What I have for you is the electronically recorded medical record from Dr. Howard on August 1, 2022. Now, mechanically, how do these records create if they're electronic?
Some of it is typing in, transcribing in, some of it's like auto-generated. Nurse puts in what they'll, it's kind of a combination of all of it. Some of them are better than others.
All right, if it's a voice recorded one, and I think there's some stamps on those records that say they are voice recorded, does the recording catch every word somebody says? Okay. And so whatever the recorder picks up is what gets printed in the record, right?
Correct.
Okay. I underlined a particular sentence and bracketed it for you just so you could identify it in that August 1, 2022 medical record. And I can't understand that sentence. Can you understand? It doesn't read very well.
Can you read it for you?
Yeah.
We discussed the role of asthma person in the med congestion instruction as well as snoring, as well as its more significant effect on the renal and permeability.
Okay. So on August 1, 2022, Dr. Howard made reference to some kind of effect that his conditions would have on the stool. Even though it doesn't read great, we can't really understand what he's saying, he uses the word stool, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Was Trinidad sick in the summer of 2022?
Obviously it was, that's on the business, you know, that's, reading what Dr. Howard saying is, something he needed to talk about it to get better. Wouldn't have said that if he hadn't been straight off from it.
Do you know whether or not Trinidad summer 2021, 2022 correlate with the exact period of time he's expected to be training, conditioning, and get in athletic shape for football?
Yeah, just, he was in the ER in March of 2021, and that's just 1 year ahead. Definitely outdated and with the breath. I think it's probably long too.
Would you be surprised to learn that the NCAA publishes something called the Sports Medicine Handbook?
I have no idea.
You've not looked at it? Okay. Let me just ask you about something that's in that handbook and ask you if it makes sense to you. Okay? There's a section of that handbook on training and conditioning. And what it says is that training and conditioning to get into shape for a college athlete is the athlete's responsibility before the preseason starts. Okay? And then it warns the athlete that if you show up in an undeveloped state, you are heightening a risk of injury to yourself and your team. Does that make sense to you?
And Your Honor, just for the record, I'd like to object. I believe this is outside the scope of prosecution. I believe the only thing that testified that he didn't know what the rules were and so I just having him opine on what the rules are and what they say at this point.
My response is I'm giving him a hypothetical that happens to be based in fact, and he's a medical doctor, and I'm asking him as a doctor, would that make sense to him? And by the way, it is responsive to cross-examination because they cross-examined him on the issue of incapacity without taking into account when he's incapacitated and when it would affect him the most.
Appreciate that.
May I continue, Your Honor? Okay. Dr. Dodd, let me ask you one final thing about this letter you were questioning about from Sarah Higley, who, by the way, says she signed it, Sarah Higley, Senior Associate Athletic Director, Ferris State University. Okay? And counsel opposite had you read a sentence. I want to read it again. Okay? Sentence says, the decision to redshirt Trinidad in fall 2022 was based on his developmental needs and our team's competitive circumstances at that time. Do you read this letter to imply anything about Trinidad's status of development at that time?
His development didn't. Because obviously, his development wasn't where it would be.
And in your opinion, based upon reasonable medical probability, did the illnesses that you testified about today impact his development as an athlete?
Absolutely. I think it was probably like that on American health. And college football is very good. Playing to
Give me 1 second now. Okay. We don't have any further questions for Dr. Dodd. And may I ask, he's got clinic this afternoon. May he leave? Yes, sir.
Dr. Guy, very personal on myself. It's not a good idea to go to the time you go before the camp, then go free. If you were seeing Dr. Howard in early August, this was seeing Chambliss position back in 5, 6, 7, before that. He noticed where he was. He was really Early July 2022. So the whole thing about
that whole line.
the current year rules, right, they would really be doing NCAA, you get checked, you sometimes before you vote, so you won't have any problem. But we weren't able to do that in 2022. I don't,
I do not think that.
but as far as you know, NCAA is not supposed to be the whole, there's, they had some doctor who review the record and make a decision if they don't. All the things you do in the day,
Yes, sir, you're good.
Thank you. Place your hand. We call, Coach Joe Judge, Women's Football. May I proceed, Your Honor? All right. Coach Judge, thank you for coming today. Appreciate that. Let's get this out of the way right now, early. Are you close with Trinidad Chambliss? Are you fond of Trinidad Chambliss? What do you think about Trinidad Chambliss as not only a football player, a human being?
the second part from important. The kind of person he is, the identity he is, I think he's better.
All right. Thank you, sir. Currently, where are you employed and what is your job title?
University of Mississippi football, I'm head coach of the offense.
When did you start work at Ole Miss?
April 2020,
Where did you obtain your undergraduate degree?
Mississippi State University.
Okay. What was your degree?
Got a history degree in 2003, a master's degree in instructional technology. We finalized in 2005.
When did you begin your first coaching job? Or I may call it a gig, I mean a job, okay?
Same thing. So when I finished playing, I stayed on the graduate assistant at Mississippi State for 3 years. So,
Okay. Did you coach at Birmingham Southern?
1 year as a linebacker.
Is that a member institution of the NCAA?
It is no longer in existence. It was a Division III school.
It was a Division
I
III.
was there in the second year.
Okay, I understand. After that job, did you make a jump to a Division I coaching position?
I was 4 years out of receiving.
Okay. Let's go to 2012. Did you make an even larger jump to the NFL?
I did it again in 2012, May.
What were your responsibilities? Well, how long did you work for the Patriots?
Well, I was in my first stint from 12 to the 19 season, and I returned to 22, 23 season. During my time there, wore a variety of hats. I was an assistant special teams coach, and special teams coordinator, as a wide receiver, coached the quarterbacks, assistant head coach. I was primarily in charge of player development, responsibility, like primary liaison with personnel department. The way Bill works, the way you need more vision, so I was there to one myself.
Yes. Did you get to coach Tom Brady?
You know what? You're gonna learn a whole lot from Tom Brady. So being around Tom, so you coach with Tom Brady, you used to love job for Tom Brady. Being on
Okay. Thank you, sir. During your first stint with the Patriots from 2012 to 2019, did you have any responsibilities for player development?
yes, I was primary responsible from 2015 to 19, and again when I returned in 22, 23, I was director of player.
Okay.
Which, to define that, what that means.
Yep.
Look, I'm the first face you see me get in there. Whether you create your own club, or you're looking to draft, create your salary from the fee. It's my job basically to acclimate in the organization. For a young player, first thing we're doing is teaching you how to play. There's a significant difference between a college football player and a professional football player. And our job is to get you up to speed with what you have to do. That entails everything from how to study film, how to identify personnel, how to communicate notes, and then also a large part into how to train, how to physically recover, the importance of taking care of your body, which is the main vehicle. It's really, without your body being full ready to go, honestly, you're useless.
Understand. Where are you from originally, Coach?
Philadelphia.
You've been here long enough now to know we talk a little bit slower, right? All right, thank you. You were, for a period of time, the head football coach for the New York Giants. Okay, what year?
2021.
Okay. And then after you left that position, did you go back to the Patriots? Okay. Well, here's a good question. How did you end up in Oxford, Mississippi?
Roundabout way, came down for a visit. The 2023 season, quite honestly. I was burning out in the NFL. I was going to take a year off. That was great till about March, till I was rearranging kitchens and under the garages. I went at 16 years old, so we got out of the visit. And I just looked at the idea of college football, so I see football stuff and use that. And I decided to get out with the schools. I scheduled 10 schools. The first school on the stop was going to primarily want to find out what this school is doing, make it so successful. I've been in the city for a period of time. At that point in time, those schools were kind of very even. It's kind of one school was up, one school was down based on the last few years. And recent years, almost a year, was flying far ahead. I wanted to see what they were doing. I wanted to get to college football. I wanted to learn the NIL and all things that come with it. I came down for a visit. I was Gilligan's Island, which was 3 hours forward, and the fall and study. And missed it.
You know, they say this about recruits that if you don't want to come to Ole Miss, don't visit Oxford, right? Same applies to you then.
I have my family down here, but they're very Oxford, so
Thank you. Your Honor, practiced law 30 plus years, and I've never had the opportunity to offer this kind of expert to the court, but I offer Coach Judge as an expert in football and quarterbacks.
Your Honor, we would lodge an objection to the extent that's an undefined science, and there's been nothing in the record that acknowledges anything separate and apart from what could be understood from other football personnel. Moreover, there's nothing to say that what he's about to testify has been peer reviewed or generally accepted, or that there's even a scientific method that you could apply a quarterback to that could be tested by anything. But subject to Your Honor's ruling, we'd just like to lodge that objection to the record.
Thank Thank you, Your Honor. I'll ask him for lay opinions then. All right. Coach Judge, you're familiar with the process of an NFL draft, aren't you? I mean, you've actually participated in that process.
My role as an assistant coach, for special team, is primarily responsible for the playing. If they're offensive, defensively, you have a team. And find out at different levels in that football. As a team, I was able to have strong as a team. I think graduated and have a step in the organization. But everybody in the grad meeting, the offensive defensive position coach, coordinator, and now I give my team, whether it's fall on the suit, how they help us improve. That's a very big phase in my football. As I built on taking wide receivers and quarterbacks, I had more of a say in the organization by that point. Having the ability to help rank the players in the draft field and do in the draft room. Some clubs had everybody in what they call the rule in the draft room. We did not do it. There were 6 people in the draft. And you had to kind of work with those 6 people outside of the ownership. When I was the head coach, primarily responsible for the draft. All the players in the draft.
And because a general manager and a head coach's job can be on the line if they draft poorly, does a lot of work go into the analysis before a particular athlete is selected at a particular draft position? Okay. What type of work, in order to form an opinion, if you're on an NFL team, the general manager, head coach on that team, if you want to form an opinion about who you want to draft and where, what kind of groundwork has to go into that?
First, the film work. The film is good enough for some kind of physical trait that you see development. And the film will go ahead and read more. The scout's job is to go out there and kind of be the real-time guy on the ground, come back with information. Go to the street, watch the practice, see playing games, come back with information. So you can go ahead and do that and make it. Right? Once you determine somebody is good enough to qualify to stay in the draft, the first thing you need to do in the draft is eliminate the players. The first thing you do is go through names, you have different qualifications, eliminate people. Once you say that someone's on the board, you start putting people down. That entails in-person interviews, visits to the college campus, pro days, individual workouts, bringing them up in your facility as part of the 30 visits, NFL, work, interviews in your facility, primarily the countless Zoom calls and phone calls, research, a tremendous amount of research.
Would part of that work include communicating with decision makers on NFL teams and determining how they view a play?
Well, right now, if I were to go ahead and fund this, yes, I would have to reach out and talk to decision makers. But I would have to reach out to them and do the research on the work they've done.
Okay. Have you done any of that, the reach out to the NFL with respect to Trinidad? And in order for you to form any opinion about where he might be drafted if he was forced to go into this year's draft, you'd have to do that work first, right?
For me to make a personal decision?
Yeah.
First off, you have to look at each individual player, and then you have to study the entire game. Because to assess where somebody is taken in the draft, it's not just about the player, or they may fall in their own position category. It's what's the rest of the draft. So you might talk about someone top wide receiver, and someone may say he's the first down receiver. So that goes into what's the line receiver available. What are the other 32 players that they get in the first down? What are the needs of the league? A lot that goes into this. It's purely by saying this guy is capable of doing this ground.
It's going to sound like a really dumb question. How important is development to an NFL player and a collegiate player?
growth. So that's the constant improvement. I say, as it relates to a college player.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
development is paramount. Here's why. When you get to that level, you know, every rookie that walks in the door, I don't care who you are, every rookie that walks in that door is miles behind every veteran. Your only true value when you're a young player looking at the contract. You're young, you're healthy, and you're cheap. That's the reality of it. If I hear someone talk about quarterbacks and rookie contracts, now ties in the rest of the roster. So your development in college gives you the best head start possible when you get on that facility's campus, start competing against those vets. Well, 52 spots on the roster. There's only so many types of positions. You have to take someone's job. And the guys who are going to go to those vets, they are physically more prepared for the duration of the season, how to train the body, how to deal with illness, how to stay ahead of weather medicine. All right. They are mentally more superior of understanding the living of personnel. That lays all about people. Schematically, what they have to do, how to study the data. You're so far behind the business, you don't even know where to start. Okay? Your greatest value, as I said, is young, healthy. So when you get on that campus, you will have the organization campus. You have to have such a head start, run that race and catch up to you. That if you're starting from ground zero and you're behind, it makes it virtually impossible to compete with one man. That's just wrong.
Does playing the position of quarterback well entail both physical attributes and mental attributes?
Absolutely.
I think we all kind of know what the physical attributes are, but let me ask you about the mental attributes. Is that just as important as the physical attributes?
In most cases, yeah.
Okay, could you explain that, please?
Playing the quarterback, you touch the ball every play. You have the organization's future every play. It's the quarterback's primary job to keep it that is positive, which means you have to have a base understanding of how the defense operates, the team presenting it, how to measure it. You have to have overall knowledge of your offense system, so you can fix problems within the system before they happen. You have to have a knowledge of the person that you're playing next with, a knowledge of the scheme that they're playing. It all ties together. So playing quarterback, the mental aspect of it, if you can't mentally operate, you can't play. There's a lot of really smart guys, okay, who can tell you what the offense is supposed to do, that can't do that with normal play. Okay? And then there's a lot of talented guys physically. All right, we're not playing at a high level of college. And that really reflects into the innovative process. When you talk about the quarterback position, it's about identifying issues, identifying defensive schemes, identifying, what you have to do in the football. It's about process. You need to see what defense is doing, making the right decisions. You're all right. So in that aspect of playing quarterback, it's not just about knowing what to do, being a meeting in the vertical game. But it's about going out there full speed, instinctively processing.
So I was going to ask you about that rapidity, right? How rapid do these decisions have to be made in real game situations by a quarterback?
You talk about the average drop back pass. So 103 seconds, you got to process, what the defense is doing, what they can do, progression, what they have to do. Then you have to execute, right?
Is that sort of mental development that we've been discussing for quarterback equally or more important than the physical development? Does Ole Miss have something called a quarterback school? Right. Okay. Tell us about the quarterback school. How long does it last? What do you do in the quarterback school? Who attends it?
So the quarterback school started quarterback. We would like to be very standard based on the experience level of the quarterback. So we may go on the quarterback, whereas the freshmen come in, do a little slower, so we can set them up as well. typically it lasts multiple weeks and probably up to a month when you're all in celebration. So quarterback school is we just teach you football. We're going to teach you everything about a defense that you can possibly learn so that you understand as the freestyle plays, if you're talking to that you're speaking the same language. Part of football is learning the language. That's really what it is. It's exposed to something else. So we get in there and think about it. We start out when we talk about front. How do you think the line is the line? We want to talk about front movement stunts. We want to talk about blitz pass. We want to talk about blitz pass. And we're going to educate quarterbacks on everything they need to know about football because they are the extension of the coach. They don't have the luxury of going out there. They have to go out there and have the entire thing fully prepared so they can fix the problem. So the quarterback school for us is we're teaching them all the terms that they're going to possibly know before we even jump. And then we start our own scheme and install it.
Thank you.
Where are we going?
Okay. Yes, Your Honor. We're getting there really quick. Okay. I understand. I will tell you what this is about. Okay. What this is about is what's in Trinidad's best interest at the present moment, which is a factor for the court to consider in granting an injunction. So, Coach, did Trinidad get to attend quarterback class, or has he gotten a chance to attend it?
When Trinidad got there last year, they used that second quarter window, but we didn't get Trin for the very end of May. The story with us was we had him for the very end of May and June, but we basically got a crash course in offense. Primarily, we're trying to get far the country to and just hours. That's the main thing we get there on the way to in July, coaches go away. So we really have to most of June, not entirely June, most of June. And then didn't really see him much in July and we get back to him. So in terms of did he have the full luxury going through the entire school, maybe.
Is another year of development for a college player, and particularly a quarterback, something that should be encouraged?
Definitely beneficial. When you can play, it definitely benefits the development of the next level.
Have you ever heard the terms demonstrated consistency? What does that mean?
Demonstrated consistency in football world is being able to take the tape and see something at a high level of consistency over a period of time.
Okay, multiple years. Have you ever heard the term a one-season guy? What does that mean?
A one-season star would simply be a player or a quarterback. Only a one-year star in the
When you were in the NFL, what was preferred? Athletes who had played over multiple years and demonstrated they could at a high level, or a one-season guy who might be a flash in the pan?
No, absolutely not. What you're looking for when you draft somebody is investment. You're allocating an asset. How to draft it, how to asset. So when you're going to go ahead and invest that asset in somebody, you're looking for sustained evidence. If more than any investment, you're going to do growth. If it's a one-year sample, you're jumping to a large jump on a week of tape as a flashing thing. Over the course of time, over you develop a development quarterback, gives you a better vision of what you can do, what you adapt, and also, as I said earlier, when you get to your team, you further ahead.
Have you taken a look at some data about NFL quarterbacks and their performance over the last 10 to 20 year time period and asked yourself the question, which of these quarterbacks were one-season guys in college?
Yeah.
Okay. For the majority of the quarterbacks who've been successful in the NFL over that time period, were they one-season guys?
Well, there are multiple season guys. Find success, what does that mean? We can talk about individual success, team success, for a professional financial.
Let me ask you some questions. Answer it from the research that you did in preparation for today. If we're talking about individual success of a quarterback in the NFL, over the past 20 years, how many NFL quarterbacks who started only one season in college in Division I were named to the NFL's All-Pro team?
There's one. It was Chambliss, who was nominated Chambliss. He was also Heisman Trophy winner, national champion, the first overall pick. Has some traits you just can't coach. I can't coach him 6'2".
Okay. Let's talk about team success. How many quarterbacks over the last 10 years played only 1 year in Division I college, but had the opportunity in the NFL to start for their team in the Super Bowl?
The only starting quarterback in that time from the Super Bowl, but the youngest starter.
Let's talk about financial success. How do you define financial success?
If you're looking at it as an investment stability, it's a team for the player. So after the rookie contract is complete, we look at all the quarterbacks who would sign extensions or with another team created 3 years or more.
So we're talking about the second contract that player, right?
Which is the most important contract we have.
Okay. All right. Over the last 10 years, how many quarterbacks in the NFL who only played 1 year in Division I college ball signed a second contract with an NFL team that was 3 years or longer?
There's 3 technically, two. So Calhoun, the first overall pick, Courthouse, second round pick. And you got Ryan Tannehill, who's also a first round pick. And second time, Tannehill, he won full season start. And the season before, he started back in the season with Thompson.
So in the last 10 to 20 years, given these parameters of my question, guys who played in the NFL at quarterback but only played 1 season in college, of all the quarterbacks that played in that time period, there's only 4. You talked about athletic development. Part of that involves the player's health, correct? All right. What are the 2 necessities for a player to be in good health so that they can play football?
To be good health, well, one, you have to train. Your body has to be in peak condition. So you have to physically prepare. And along with that comes the nutrition element, comes the rest of the recovery element. And that's where the player
Okay. Between nutrition and sleep, which of the 2 is more important for the athlete? When you were working in player development for the Patriots, did you have opportunities to educate players or consult with players about their sleep patterns?
we invested a great deal of time and assets specifically on our players' sleep and rest and recovery. So we end up bringing this back, looking to research the Navy SEAL. We talked about sleep and how it correlates to cognitive function, as well as physical recovery. And after that research, we ended up going out, we got those sensory deprivation sleep pods with saltwater tanks flowed in. What it does is put you into a deep sleep, reset your sleep. We had one for the first season we had that, and immediately returned and put additional training in. So we not only invested financially, we had that adding a number of these things, not housing as well. We invested a significant amount of time educating our players on it, as well as tracking their sleep, nutrition records, sports scientists, and making sure that we were fully rested and then working with them to the sleep patterns. And that would include when we practiced on the road, it was common in the NFL, we had 2 West Coast games in a row. There was time we practiced day a week in San Diego, there was one time we practiced day a week in Colorado, Mexico, and both those instances, we found facilities in the city that had those sleep deprivation tanks. We would transfer our players to them to be able to put up for us to protect their sleep patterns regularly for recovery. And this kind of gives you in terms of the health part of it, soft tissue injuries, from a hamstring, glute, joint, things like that. That is something as an athlete that is preventable. The formula for preventing is number one, you have to be in shape, do your job, condition, or ready to be fully recovered, rested, and have the right nutrition, hydration, and then you have to be warmed up. Or things you can do to control.
Gotcha. You ever heard a saying that bad players get good players hurt? What does that mean? Well, in the context of this case, where we're talking about, medical illnesses, sleep apnea, not having enough energy in the daytime. What does that phrase mean in the context of this case?
Generally speaking, when somebody is moving at a different speed, the rest of people on the field, they think they're at a speed level. That's when you get someone who's on the ground, off down, out of place. The guys who are moving at a rate, and then someone falls and someone breaks from time, their body power, that's when you put bad players. And that comes a lot of times from the players in the condition, but if you begin to practice, the legs start to give, the players start to compete, and all of a sudden now we're preparing 50 guys out there.
Can a sleep disorder make a player bad or increase his risk of injury or injury to a teammate?
Your Honor, I'd object to the extent this college or quarterback's coach testimony on what medical issues with respiratory system causing.
It's based on his personal experience. It's based on his personal experience is what I'm asking about. Yeah. Can a sleep disorder affect a player's ability? Okay. Has that occurred in your past where you have encountered players with sleep disorder?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you do for those players?
Well, we got to make sure that keeping out their sleep cycles and they're properly rested. Several players, of course, and then there was also the players like we would have to educate. This is always a tough conversation to have. We would have to educate significant others who made them pregnant in the season. We're going to have a baby in the season. So you have to educate them on. You have this baby in the season. That father has to play good football. It's a day-by-day business. He has to be ready to perform a lot of play. And when I say that is, you need to let him sleep. He needs to be in another room, attached. You can play the mother. Like, hey, listen, he ain't listening up to the after the season. He's holding out jacket to do whatever he wants. So you can't get it right. You got to have it. Now, there were examples of youth. We had some older veteran players. And I think I was able to kill him. We would sleep in another room, a lot of things, family and nursing aid, to help throughout the night. Those players to keep an eye on the other players who were younger, who quite simply did whatever the other father and the world does, they not to be ready to do, and led in, and we saw people not being rested.
That never occurred to me that newborns can affect injuries on the football field. But how did who had to deliver that message? Okay. And to whom did you deliver the message? Oh my Lord. How did that go? All right. Let's talk about a trend in the NFL if we can right now. And what I'm asking about is the rush to play quarterbacks early after they get drafted, right? What have you noticed the trend is?
Development, like this, and quite frankly, when you grab the quarterback, and you got to get that guy out. And you get, and they want to do that. They're looking for the guy to be drafted. They want some college tape, they need to set it there. And they want to get him on the field and see him. So there's a lot of
Okay. Are there quarterbacks that you're familiar with who weren't rushed into a starting position in their first year, got a chance to sit and learn and develop?
Yeah, actually, in terms of completing the development athlete, and even with the high end example, Aaron Rodgers, that 6 times less ball and Aaron Rodgers developed, and he did a really good job with that. Really well. You know, the return on investment of staying out.
So would it be in the best interest of a college quarterback who one day anticipates going to the NFL to get as much development as he can on the collegiate level, because he might not get that opportunity in the NFL?
Yes.
You read sports media? Okay. No offense to anybody here. All right.
I learned a long time ago. So reading that stuff,
Okay. Well, you're aware that every year there's a whole business built around prognosticating draft picks. Okay. And you know, we know names like there's Mel Kiper and then there's Todd McShay and there's other people that do this for a living. What value do you give a journalist's prediction as to the draft status or draft round or draft number of college athletes? Sometimes are those prognostications terribly wrong? Can you think of one in recent memory that was terribly wrong?
I don't think it's what we need to do is go. Five picks. So they went along the way. That doesn't reflect what you can do. But again, the guarantee of what again, they don't have all these things. When you talk about all these things with those picks, even within each organization itself, there's only a small circle of information. Everybody else gives information, every opinion. And the inside circle has to say when they make a decision. You talk about like mock draft right now, it's out there right now. You're making predictions about the process of the picks. We haven't had a combine. We haven't had in-person interview. We haven't had the medical psyche. We haven't had programs. We haven't had work. We haven't had business to facilities. The entirety of the process really hasn't been gained. So to make a prediction on what someone may or may not know at this point in time, you don't have the information. You don't have the inside information.
Let me, final subject matter, okay? Heisman Trophy. Are you aware that Trinidad got votes for the Heisman Trophy in 2025? Okay. Do you know where he finished in the voting? Okay. Have you reviewed the list of the 7 persons that got more votes than he did? All right, where are 4 of those people right now that got votes higher than Trinidad? Okay. So next year, if he's at Ole Miss, he won't have to compete against those 4 people, will he? Do you think that Trinidad, if he plays next year at Ole Miss, stays healthy, performs at a high level like he did this past season, has a reasonable, non-speculative shot at winning a Heisman Trophy?
I believe it's a fair state. In terms of where he finished after this year, in terms of he did not play a full season this year. And only 10 games out of 12 seasons in the season. He started and a very high level for us. He started in the SEC, so his numbers were on the top and finished.
Okay. Do you know guys who won Heisman Trophy?
I was in Alabama.
Is a Heisman Trophy for the recipient of one a life-changing experience, even if they don't make it in the NFL?
I would say not even me, but being involved that way. It's just a positive publicity for somebody
They go out in the real world and main, revenues of people. And then, the boys about the regular, the sports field, and the other field. You need a high control food. Students.
And the guys who won Heisman trophies end up being sports commentators.
I'd say that's accurate. Look at the guys who know playing.
Yeah. Right, and they get invited to the Heisman House, of course, right? Yeah. Your Honor, I tender the witness.
Coach Judge, it's an honor to meet you. Thank you for being here today. I'll try to be brief. You talked about your history as a coach and dealing with players who had sleep apnea or sleep disorders. Did you play any of those players during the season when they had those disorders? In some cases, though, the answer was yes. When you discussed giving people a CPAP machine and things like that, was that during the off season? Who were the ones you're thinking of in season? Do you know how many there are? How much is a handful? You ever have anybody with tonsillitis? When players get colds or flus or things like that, they've had occasion to play through those, haven't they? Right. That's not a trick question. It's just all of these are individual circumstances, correct? If Trinidad entered the NFL draft this year, would he get drafted?
I'm not in a position to say that because I have not.
Well, given your experience in the NFL and at college now, do you think he would?
Yeah. Yes, the reason those assumptions are so unsound to make is because the people who make those assumptions don't have information. So to turn around and say, like, of course so-and-so is dead, you're not in the rooms. You have no idea what to say. You have no idea the number of times that you're drafted. Where you can turn on the New York Sports News and they were guaranteeing that they're going to draft one of two players. You look on a board. Okay? People quote me saying things. I'm going to do multiple. Okay? So what you think to be perceived as absolute fact based on things, there's been Heisman Trophy winners who want congrats. In case of whatever, we will congrats. Okay? So to turn around and assume is a very dangerous thing to do.
Agreed.
I'm not going to do that because I'm not doing the work. I'm not talking to GMs, head coaches, finding out where the raspberry is.
In your opinion, then, does Trinidad currently possess the skill set to be an NFL quarterback?
And my belief is the skill set is okay.
If Mr. Chambliss returns next year, is he going to win the Heisman?
Do I believe he has a ability that's safe to say he will compete for that? He will compete for that? Or is he really yeah, he will.
And that's the point I'm getting at, though. You wouldn't go on record under oath saying he's going to win the Heisman, would you?
The difference is, I'm in college, so I can comment on something better than college football based on stats. I'm no longer in the national football. I don't have the inside information to deliver to the South to decision makers. That's apples and oranges.
So any testimony you've given about the current state of the NFL, you don't really have any personal knowledge of because you're in the college world now.
Object to the question, Your Honor. That is completely disregard the witness's personal experience testimony he's given.
In your experience, then, where a quarterback potentially gets drafted in the NFL draft, is that a mechanism of the other potential quarterbacks that are in that draft class, so to speak?
It's not purely just on the quarterback.
You're talking about person in the draft, right?
Right.
Let me give you an example. Okay? Some teams have round-based grading. Is he a first rounder, or second rounder, third rounder, right? The reason I find that so inaccurate is we're talking about players when you think he's valued to go by round. If you talk by role, specifically, if you say, what do I think about Jaden Daniels? Right? Jaden Daniels coming out, I can say, based on my evaluation, I think Jaden Daniels impact starting quarterback in this year. And he needs X, Y, and Z of development, he's just going to work with. I can say on one liner, this is his role. The reason that's important is this. The guest based filling on the ground is a